the challenges of climate change and artificial general intelligence and artificial biology are many. It's a scary future that we've set ourselves up for, and I'm, more aware of that future than the average consumer. But in meeting so many clean tech, mostly entrepreneurs and executives, it gives me tremendous hope, because we are an amazing species, and we really do have the wherewithal to make the transition. We just have to lean in.
And this is Scaling Clean, the podcast for clean economy CEOs, investors, and the people who advise them. I'm your host, Mike Casey. My day job is running Tigercomm, a firm that counsels companies that are helping move the U.S. economy onto a more sustainable footing. I get to meet the people who are succeeding at building, funding, or advising the most successful companies in your sectors. So each show, we try to bring you usable insights from these leaders so you can apply them to the business of running your business. Hello, Clean Techers. A lot of you know we convene quarterly roundtables for podcasters, journalists, and investors in the clean tech space. And the folks we have the honor of talking to have interesting things to say about us, because many of us frequently approach them with our hopes and our aspirations. Today, I get the privilege of talking to one of them because he's achieved some serious milestones in his clean tech coverage. My friend Tim Montague has been a dedicated clean tech podcaster for 10 years. He just broke the 400 episode mark on his show, and we thought it was worth interviewing him about what he learned through these many hours of talking to leaders in the industry. Besides being a committed observer and participant in clean tech circles, he's also a wonderful person. Tim, thanks for taking the time to talk with us.
Thanks, Mike. Great to be here.
All right, my friend, you recently crossed the 400 episode threshold in your podcasting. I'd like to know how and why you started in clean tech and what has kept you here.
Well, I grew up doing backyard solar thermal in Albuquerque, New Mexico in 1975. My dad was interested in sustainability and technology. He's a self-taught toxics expert, journalist, programmer, and just all-around great guy. And so I can't really hold a candle to him, but anyway, technology was a big part of my childhood. And then I got interested in, ecology and sustainability when I was in college. And so technology, people, and sustainability are just threads that connect all of my careers and activities, really, other than my role as a father, which is the most important thing I'm going to do in this lifetime, Mike, like so many of us. And I'm happy to talk about that too, but love podcasting. My dad was a writer, and my mom actually. And so I didn't quite have that talent to be, not in an efficient manner anyway, but I can be a content creator, I found through podcasting. And so I've glommed onto that, and it's been a rocket ship. Okay.
So looking back, what have you learned about clean tech by talking to so many people in this space?
Well, it's a very diverse space, for one thing, all kinds of people, and while I work in the solar industry, I'm a solar developer. I develop C&I and community solar. And so I do talk to a lot of solar professionals. I'm also very interested in storage and various forms of decarbonizing the economy. And so I guess that's one of the things that I've learned is that, we really have the technology to make the energy transition between solar, wind, and batteries and other forms of energy storage. And there's way more than you might think. And that's one of the things that's so cool about being in the media space is you learn just how many different technologies there are that are being commercialized now. Thanks to companies like Tigercomm, frankly, who bring me all these interesting technologies that I would never have known about, like Rondo Energy, for example. They're doing hot batteries. You make a heat-resistant device. You run electricity in one side, you get hot bricks out the other side, and you can do all kinds of cool stuff. Make cement, make steel, make food processing, whatever you need industrial heat for. And it's all powered by wind or solar. And we're swimming in solar energy and wind energy and other forms of renewable energy. So we have the technology. We just need to get it out there, right? We need to deploy it, as Jigar Shah likes to say, and he is one of my favorite all-time guests. He's been on my show 3 times, head of the Loan Program Office at the DOE. Shout out to Jigar. Native Illinoisan for all intents and purposes, even though he was an immigrant when he was one year old from India. And so Illinois has a soft spot in his heart, and that's always nice. A lot of people don't know about Illinois. Nico calls us flyover country, which I don't appreciate. But
yeah, that Johnson, he's a bum. That's why he's not on the show.
Oh my goodness!
All right.
What about you?
Well,
what about you, Mike? What have you learned from podcasting?
Well, Tim, this is sort of the same thing for me. I have found it really an amazing ride. The smarts of some of the people that we work for are just like incredible. I mean, I'm frequently in awe of what people have thought of and what people are doing. And as you know, our podcast is quite a bit more focused on the CEO level, and hearing these people's journey and how they got to their corner office, what they've learned along the way, I'm struck by the humility, by the depth of wisdom, and the ability to have a commanding position of knowledge and ability in your job, but to keep a humble sense for an open mind. And I think that's probably been the best thing that I've found. But my friend, you're the one who's getting interviewed here, so I think you got to be the star of the show. Let me ask you this: 400 episodes. You've talked to a lot of people, and you've talked about a lot of companies. Who stands out to you as like a really memorable interview, and why was that interview memorable?
I mean, one of the things that I notice is just how smart people are, and I don't know that there's one person, okay, that stands out for me. There's a handful of them. James McWalter is a young CEO of a company called Paces that is disrupting the technology that land developers, solar developers, wind developers use for siting and permitting projects. Kate Collardson, who's creating this ecosystem for solar panel recycling. Shalaya Morissette from the DOE, a wonderful African-American woman who's just like so alive. And I mean, I love all of my interviews, to be honest, but some people just shine in a way that grabs you, right? And that's one of the things that I love about this is meeting such amazing people who are already doing amazing things and are going to do so many more amazing things. It gives me hope.
Yeah.
Right? Because the challenges of climate change and artificial general intelligence and artificial biology are many. It's a scary future that we've set ourselves up for. And I'm, more aware of that future than the average consumer. But in meeting so many clean tech, mostly entrepreneurs and executives, it gives me tremendous hope because we are an amazing species and we really do have the wherewithal to make the transition. We just have to lean in.
Tim, I'll just give you a piece of validation on that perspective. What I hear when we ask our CEO guests, what's different about running a clean economy company versus running a company in more mature sectors? Many of them have done both. Some have only worked in clean economy, but know people who are in similar positions, their peers in more mature industries. I think almost to a person, they have cited the dynamic quality of the sector because these really bright, aspiring minds get attracted to the space. So just resonating with your point, but boy, have we heard that a lot. So let me pivot over to another question. What makes someone a really great interview for your show? What do they do when you are talking to them that make them stand out?
Learning how to describe what you do in the world, but doing it in small sound bites is very important. I love guests who I can have a two-way conversation with. I don't script my interviews, Mike. I do a pre-interview call for half an hour with my guests, and I get a bio and talk about what we're going to talk about with them in the pre-interview. So I have some rapport and some grounding in what they're about and what their company is about. And then we just let loose. And I always have a similar arc. I get into their background at the beginning of the show, but then we quickly transition to what is their company doing in the world, because capitalism is a wonderful force of nature. And so that's a good interview for me, is somebody who is a technologist or an entrepreneur or an owner operator in solar, wind, or batteries. And but one that is not too full of themselves. You know, I love very smart, humble guests.
Gotcha. Okay. For those people who are not podcasters and they're listening to this, what do you want them to know about what it's like to host and produce one of these things?
Well, it's way easier than you might think. I think a lot of people are intimidated. Podcasting is exploding and many individuals and companies are getting into it, but not many stick around for more than 10 episodes. And so you have to figure out a routine that is cost effective and time effective. This is a very, very much a part-time role that I play in the world, running the Clean Power Hour. And it's very important that is only a part-time venture. But I would encourage others to experiment and create a plan. And you do this by finding peers. I developed a relationship with Nico Johnson when I was early in my solar trajectory, and I work with Cliff Ravenscraft, the podcast, formerly known as the podcast Answer Man. Cliff got into podcasting in like 2003.
Wow.
When I didn't even know what the heck it was. Yeah, 10 years before I did. I started podcasting in 2013. So it's totally doable. You can do it on a shoestring. I'm not a true shoestring operation anymore, and I've been able to monetize the show now, which is wonderful. And so it's starting to kind of take off, which is nice.
All right,
But go ahead.
What role does podcasting play in Cleantech, and where do you see it going in the years ahead? So the role it plays now, and what role it'll play in the future?
Well, podcasting is a unique form of media. As Nico likes to say, Nico Johnson, host of Suncast podcast, you get to be in somebody's ear for 20 to 45 minutes in a way and have their undivided attention in a way that you don't in other forms of media and marketing. And so podcasting is an icing on the cake, really, as a way to communicate what's going on in the world. People may sit down still and watch television and consume more traditional media, movies and videos and news programs, documentaries. And now you can consume podcasts on top of all that and YouTube videos. And I'm a YouTube first podcaster, so my show was a video and audio experience. And then I was a latecomer actually to the audio only side of podcasting. But so it has some unique aspects that if your audience is listening on just audio, which my audience is both, some of them are watching on YouTube and getting the video also. I mean, we humans, we are very visual. We like to see other humans. We love to see the human face, for example. And so I do think video is very powerful. But Nico is right that the auditory experience when I'm, gardening or running, exercising, doing chores, driving, listening is a very good way to learn also, and I learn a tremendous amount about the world through the handful of shows that I am able to consume. There's so many shows you can't consume them all, of course. That's one of my regrets. I wish I could, in a way, just plug that in, get the Neuralink and download all that information because it's a torrent. But yeah, it's important marketing platform now. And in time, it's just going to grow. It's just going to continue to flourish, I think, and displace, for example, traditional radio.
Gotcha. Okay, so I've often said that a sign of sector health is the journalists and the podcasters and the quality of their work that follow this space. And for argument's sake, let's assume I'm right about that. What should companies in our sectors do to support our podcasters?
Well, we should pay attention. We should listen to their shows. We should subscribe. We should tell our friends to subscribe when you find a good show, and we should do our best to support shows. I subscribe to Sam Harris's podcast. He is a full-time podcaster and public intellectual, for example. He's a neuroscientist, and he doesn't accept corporate sponsorships because he doesn't want any outside influence on his content. So I give, $15 a month to Sam Harris. And so that is the ultimate form of support is financial, but just being a fan is great. I have a small handful of superfans who interact with me on a weekly basis, and I love that. I love talking to them and learning what's going on in their careers and their solar projects. Some of them are solar professionals, some of them are not. And so interact. I love talking to people who know my show and pay attention to it. And I will also consider bringing you onto the show. I bring a wide variety of types of people onto the show, albeit focused on, for the most part, solar, wind, and battery storage or energy storage.
Here's a question I'd like to ask CEOs we interview for our Scaling Clean episodes. Has your podcasting work in this space left you a climate optimist or a climate pessimist, and why?
It's neither or for me. My stance is the challenges are very serious and very many. And most of us are actually very naive about how serious the challenges are. Those 800 gigatons of carbon pollution that we have accumulated in the atmosphere are a real problem and hard to get rid of. That being said, we're very smart, capable, flexible, dynamic, creative species, and there's nothing stopping us from surviving for another 1,000 or million years, technically, right? We have what it takes. But we're also in the process of shooting ourselves in the foot, Mike. Like, you see what's going on in society in the West, and we're bickering with one another. We're warring with one another, and we're not coming together as a species to get through this period of transition. And that's one of the reasons I love Elon Musk and his ambitions to go to Mars. I think space is a frontier that brings humanity together. You see the Russians and the Americans cooperating on the International Space Station. China now has their own space station. And I'm concerned about that the U.S. and China are not collaborators in space. We are planning to militarize space. We have militarized space, and so it's just another playing field for the military-industrial complex. But we have to come together and fast, right? Because the great filter, the theory of the great filter, this theory that we don't see intelligent life from other star systems because the intelligent life never gets off its home planet. That's what we're in the process of doing.
All right. Last question. Someone wants to be on the Clean Power Hour. what should they do in approaching you?
Check out the show. Go to cleanpowerhour.com. Listen to a few episodes. So know something about who it is that I like to bring on the show. And then it's just simple. Reach out to me. You can do that on the contact us form on the website. I look at all those submissions. You can chat me up on LinkedIn. I love chatting with people on LinkedIn. I use it several times a day. And then, if there's good potential, we'll set up a time to do a pre-interview. And I almost never don't go to a full interview from a pre-interview. I would say 95% of the time that I do a pre-interview, I do a full interview. Now, I can only publish one interview a week or 52 episodes a year right now. That's my capacity. I do 2 shows. I do a news roundup live with John Weaver from PV Magazine, and then I do a pre-recorded interview. So I have limited bandwidth. That's really the only challenge on getting on the show is, I've got probably 2 months of backlog right now that I'm just, and I get new good potential interviewees every day. So
it's great. Tim Montague, I have really enjoyed talking with you. I love the work you do, and I'm a fan, as you know, and I'm delighted we got to talk to you after clearing this very impressive milestone of 400 episodes. It's amazing. So congratulations on the work you're doing, and thank you on behalf of people in this space for doing the work you've done. And I don't know any podcasters in this space who are doing it for the money. They're doing it because they want to make a contribution to the efforts of others, and I think you're doing that. So anyway, good on you, and thank you, my friend.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I really appreciate what you do in the world too. The roundtables and getting into podcasting yourself. It's good to see.
It's all your fault. All right, take care.
All right, thank you.